With reference to knowledge management maturity, what are the characteristics of knowledge-enabled high-performing organizations?
The concept of a high-performing knowledge-enabled organization involves really 5 components. There's people and culture, there's processes of the organization, there's content, there's structure, and then there's governance. Let's talk about each one. In a high-performing knowledge-enabled organization, and that's an organization where knowledge management concepts, strategies, and practices are embedded into the fabric of the organization, or said another way, it is fully integrated as part of the way the organization works. It's not viewed as extra work. It's viewed as part of the way they do work. So in those organizations, with respect to people and culture, there's a collaborative environment. Trust is high between leadership and workforce, and amongst the workforce and the leadership themselves. The organization, leadership demands collaboration in the organization. And all of those are some of the characteristics from the people and culture perspective in terms of a high-performing knowledge-enabled organization. When it comes to process, we're talking about processes from the perspective of enabling processes for knowledge management. People learn before they work, they learn during, and they learn after they work, meaning that before they start a project, they find out what is already known about that project. As they execute the project, they perform action reviews, which allow them to learn while they're doing. And then when the project's completed, they do retrospects. They learn after the project's been completed, and they use those learnings to improve processes throughout the organization, or to provide a knowledge base on these kinds of projects for the rest of the organization. People map their processes. Very often the high-level processes are captured, codified, and made available not only for reference, but as part of the onboarding process. And in fact, you'll find that in these organizations, they practice the concept of what we call operationalizing learning. That's the idea that you're going to align process, execution, and training so that as work is accomplished and learning is acquired, they make changes in the process, and they also make corresponding changes in their training, so that when people complete the training, they're actually going to be working based on the most current practices from the field or the factory floor if it's a production organization. Then there's enabling technology. Technology is very important as part of an organization from the perspective of knowledge management. Technology is very often the glue that actually enables people to connect, collect, and collaborate. While it is not the main event of knowledge management, it's actually essential, particularly for organizations that are geographically distributed. So in order for people to connect, collect, and collaborate, they need to take advantage of the particular technology that's most effective in the context of that particular organization's culture. In a high-performance knowledge-enabled organization, when we talk about content, we're talking about the ability of the organization to search for, find, access, download, and reuse whatever kind of content has been created in order to support the mission of the organization. It's about selecting the right kinds of enabling technology. Do they have a taxonomy? Is there an architecture for the knowledge of the organization? And ultimately, what we're talking about in high-performing knowledge-enabled organizations is the ability of that organization to understand where knowledge is, how it's used, and most importantly, how do they make it flow across the boundaries of the organization so that that knowledge is available to continuously improve the performance of that organization and ultimately deliver the organization's mission. And structure and governance. What we're talking about there is, what's the knowledge management support structure? Is it one person supporting a large organization? Is there a central focus in knowledge management support? Is it an internal consulting kind of a function? Is it distributed? Like in a very large corporation, you'll find organizations actually push knowledge management support down to the individual business units, because by definition, the culture and workforce dynamics in each of those organizations is different. And then we talk about governance. What's the model for CAM governance? Is it highly regulated? Again, is it distributed? Is it the ability of the organization to embed knowledge management coaches in each of the teams? There's a host of different ways that this can be done, but whatever the outcome is, high-performing, knowledge-enabled organizations that are able to focus on people and culture, process, content, structure, and governance will be very successful.